Hello, my name is John today, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm here to read this book, the Daily Reflections book of Alcoholics Anonymous for February 10th, 2026. It's called I Don't Run the Show. When we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis we could not postpone or evade, we had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be? That's from Alcoholics Anonymous, page 53. Which I have a version that looks like this, which I might read later for us today. Today, my choice is God. He is everything. For this, I am truly grateful. When I think I am running the show, I am blocking God from my life. I pray I can remember this when I allow myself to get caught up into self. The most important thing is that today I am willing to grow along spiritual lines and that God is everything. When I was trying to quit drinking on my own, it never worked. With God and AA, it is working. This seems to be a simple thought for a complicated alcoholic. So let me back up to yesterday. That I was trying to quote something from this book, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book, and I couldn't find it because it's very difficult for me to read and talk and look for something. And so I was unable to find it, and then today I did a bit of research and I did find the passage I was looking for. And why I brought that up today is just for a jumping off point into this topic of step 2, I guess, which says, something. It says, the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Period. The end of the second step. So, I didn't have a clue as to what a power greater than myself could be in my early days of getting sober, like, let's say 20 years ago, which my actual sobriety date now, which is like 19 years and some fraction, was after a 5-year absence or relapse, I guess, from the program from the first time I tried AA. So this is my second go around, and it's been working for me. Like it says in today's reading, the program and God has been working for me for 18 plus years, 19 plus years, whatever it is. Anyhow. What the? Sorry, I'm thinking about something, and it's funny to me, and I'm not going to let you in on it. This jumping off point, that a power greater than ourselves could restore me to sanity, I didn't have a clue what they were talking about 19 years ago. And this is even after going through the program before. What is it? Half measures availed us nothing, it says in the big book. I didn't care. I was just going through the motions to get the judge off my back, essentially, is what happened 25, 26 or so years ago. So at the earliest opportunity or the earliest sign of discomfort or difficulty in my life, I went right back to drinking. And it caught up with me. It took about 5 years, which isn't that long. Nearly dead and everything else in ruins. So here, not now this brings me to what is going on today. Besides, I wanted to bring up the thing that I forgot about yesterday. But in today's reading, I don't run the show, from February 10th. It says, when we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis we could not postpone or evade, we had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be? So, like I just got done saying, like 26 years ago, is that right? Yeah, 26 years ago, I came off a run of like 30 years of alcoholism, unchecked alcoholism. And I had a couple little hiccups here and there where, to satisfy some requirement, I was forced by some authority much greater than myself, like the U.S. Navy, forced into some kind of treatment rehab thing. So I was familiar with the 12 steps and attending meetings and that kind of thing. And then whatever happened. And I tried to get sober, and it lasted about a month or a little bit longer. Just long enough to be locked up in inpatient treatment, complete the program, get back on the horse of my life that turned out to be a very broken horse. Anyhow, man, what? Oh, so then I just basically drifted around for about 5 years drinking and nearly died and was a completely broken man. Nearly completely broken. I still had a pulse and some brains enough to get into treatment again. Let's see now. So that brings us to this thing that I don't run the show. Humility. It's a big key thing in this program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So when we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis that I couldn't evade, I couldn't get away from it. This was all of my doing, and I had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or and whatever it says in the book. And when I say it was a nearly completely broken man, that's like how I felt, because the so-called system, I don't know what your experience and what part of the system you've been involved with. It's got some grand ideas and everything, and it isn't terribly, or at least for myself, this guy. I forget who I called myself today because I don't use my real name. Anyhow, this guy, it was not very helpful. The system wasn't very helpful to me at that time in my life. That's another key distinction also, is that I wasn't ready or broken enough, or something critical was missing in my life for this program of Alcoholics Anonymous to work. Because I think maybe 2 days ago I mentioned something from the traditions, the second tradition, because it's the second month. What's the second tradition say? For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority. a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. And then if you just keep reading into the third tradition, which is a great touchstone, I guess, although I don't like that word, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. And I'll take that far enough to say you can be drinking going on the way to an AA meeting, and as long as you just leave the booze that you were consuming outside and you drag your drunken body into the meeting and act like a drunken fool or not, you're still welcome, because each one of us had to come into that room in a like manner, and you know, the only requirement is you have a desire to quit drinking. So it made it very much different from the system, as I mentioned earlier. And well, anyways, enough about that. Why did I bring that up? The second tradition. Oh, the free and openness and the non-structuredness, in a way, made it very easy now for this nearly completely broken man to accept this choice, I guess, that had been laid at my feet, that through my own doing I had nearly ruined everything and killed myself. And being somewhat aware of the program, in particular what we're talking about here, because you probably lost track of that by now, like I do sometimes, is step 2, because it's February. Let's talk about step 2. What's it say again? Just to make all of us more familiar with this. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Period. The end of that. Now, right on top of that, I'm going to go back to this thing I forgot about yesterday. From the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book, found on page, towards the bottom of page 27 in this area. The paragraph begins with this. This is only one man's opinion based on his own experience, of course. Which we're going to skip everything that happened before this. I must quickly assure you that AAs, meaning the members of AA, tread innumerable paths in their quest for faith. Kind of like in the way that I said we all came to AA drunk, which I think is true, and some, at least our thinking maybe wasn't altogether sober. Anyways, there's many different paths on the quest to faith. I'll put it that way. So if you don't care for the one I've suggested, which is all the stuff that I skipped over, because this is the meat of what I'm trying to get to, is that you can use the AA group or concept as your power greater than yourself. Because like myself, I was broken, and this is a self-imposed crisis that's mentioned in today's reading, one I couldn't escape or run away from, and I had to make this choice because I was aware of how the program might be able to work for me, and I had this problem. I didn't have a power greater than myself to believe in. And then it was brought up somehow, some way to my attention that I could use the group, let's say from the second tradition, the group conscience, like with science on the end of it, as my power greater than myself. And why? Because of what it says right here. And you know, a bit of preamble. This is, of course, only one man's opinion based on his own experience. Of course, I must quickly assure you that's the previous stuff. I must quickly assure you that AAs tread innumerable paths in their quest for faith. If you don't care for everything I've said so far, listen to this, the one I've suggested. You'll be sure to discover one that suits you. You'll be sure to discover one that suits if only you look and listen. Many a man like you or myself has begun to solve the problem by the method of substitution. Now, this is the important part. You can, if you wish, make AA itself your higher power. Here's a very large group of people who have solved their alcohol problem. In this respect, they are certainly a power greater than you, who have not even come close to a solution. Surely you can have faith in them. Even this minimum of faith will be enough. You will find many members who have crossed the threshold just this way. All of them will tell you that once across, their faith broadened and deepened. Relieved of the alcohol obsession, their lives unaccountably transformed. They came to believe in a higher power, and most of them began to talk of God. Okay, so here's a very large group of people who have solved their alcohol problem. In this respect, they are certainly a power greater than you, who have not even come close to a solution. I want to get back to that, or I did want to get back to that because I feel it's so well written and helpful in the way of explaining a power greater than yourself. And then, like I had mentioned already today, that this program, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, period. That's the the only requirement. And like I said, that quoting the second tradition, our leaders are but trusted servants, meaning they're there to help. And now let's contrast this thing here, the AA system as it is, or was and is, and hopefully shall be to come, versus the other system of, like in the United States, in the interest of public safety, there's legislation written by politicians to satisfy what they think is the way to do things, and all the mechanics of how all that works. And so here's something interesting about that, I think at least, is that they come up with a lot of things. I don't know how it is any longer because I've been free of run-ins with the system for so long now, and a lot of laws change, things change. I know it's gotten a lot more, let's say the consequences of drinking and driving alone have become much more severe from when I used to be more familiar with that part of the system. So anyways, what am I trying to say? That system is, like here, in just the crudest fashion, that's a system by men. And then you got the AA program, which, in, again, the crudest, most irresponsible way probably of me saying something like this, is a system of God. That just doesn't sound right, because this is part of what I'm talking about, is that this third requirement for, or the third tradition, there's one requirement, and it's only a desire to stop drinking. It doesn't even say you need to quit drinking. And I already mentioned that, is that if you're drinking on the way to the club and you set the actual liquid or whatever drink and substance and crap that you're using outside of the club and drag your intoxicated body into the club, good on you. And we're going to try and accommodate you as well as we can. You're certainly going to be welcomed. But I guess a lot of drunks can be very disruptive, and it just might not be nice for the other people in the room trying to get sober like you are. So sometimes it really disrupts the meeting, and it kind of, the meeting stops, I'll say, at least for a brief while. So anyways, what am I trying to get at? Oh, me with this irresponsible use of the phrase or term that somehow the AA system, let's say the AA system is much different by the system of man I had mentioned earlier that was created by legislators and voted into law, and then I said this thing, something interesting about that also is that I was in the Navy. That's probably where I had my first legal consequence of drinking run-in thing with the system within like under the Uniform Code of Military Justice as one part of that system. And this thing that I'm saying is interesting, at least to myself, is that all through that funnel of trying to get sober in that system and become rehabilitated, I guess, there sat Alcoholics Anonymous at the bottom of that. And then in subsequent many years later, dealing with the system of man again, I guess, in my wrongly interpreted thing here today. Like in mental health, I started seeing a psychotherapist in the VA system, which is kind of yet again a different system. That's a government system. What would it be? Anyways, I'm getting just so far off the path here. I think somehow I think it will all come back together, though. I have faith it might, at least. Is that even many years later and another bunch of mistakes and drunken incidents, and then this thing, the self-imposed crisis. I still don't think I've explained this the way I wanted to. Today's reading, I don't run the show. When we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis we could not postpone or evade, we had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God was everything or else he is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be? And then I said something about like my first run through treatment. That was all like forced upon me. So I just went through the motions. I didn't make any kind of choice. It was wasn't smart, I'll put it that way. Because 5 years later, I was nearly dead and nearly completely ruined. But that's a really good place to be. Because now I was willing and humble. Because I was broken. It's like everything I thought I was doing or whatever was okay, and it would all turn out because I'm smarter than that or something. Well, that still may have been, except I couldn't stop drinking alcohol. And that was a serious problem because it turns out I am an alcoholic, and there is like no off switch there's no off switch involved. I start drinking and I just completely lose control. That they call it an allergy, I guess. The craving is set up. And then this thing, one drink is never enough, and 50 aren't too many, or the alcoholic's paradox, when this realization sets in. If I don't get a drink, I'm going to die, but if I drink, it's going to kill me. I've been there, and all this. So this is like this self-imposed crisis. And then like this thing, well, maybe a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, because looking at my past behavior, at least as far as where alcohol was concerned, definitely irrational, probably more likely insane behavior related to everything around alcohol and me. just insane. I needed something to restore that sanity. Maybe it'd be a power greater than myself, and then I find out that the club, the group of people at Alcoholics Anonymous can be that power greater than myself, because to quote again from this book, because I like it so much, what did it say on the, somewhere down towards the bottom of page, what was it, 27? You can, if you wish, make AA itself your higher power. Here's a very large group of people who have, or maybe even a very small group of people, but here's the thing, who have solved their alcohol problem. In this respect, they are certainly a power greater than you, who have not even come close to a solution. So I could try and tear this apart too, but I'm not going to. Because did they actually solve their alcohol problem? That's for a whole nother 45-minute talk probably. Anyhow, so that, why'd I bring that up again? The self-imposed crisis, making a choice of God is or God isn't. I say you don't even need to go that far or even use that word God yet. Because if you have the desire to quit drinking, and you see a bunch of people that have solved their alcohol problem week in and week out, day in, day out, whatever, you keep going to the meetings, and you start seeing the same people showing up a lot, and they're not out drinking, you can just tell. And it seems like they're going somewhere you want to go to also. It's like, how did they do that? And if you keep your ears open and your mouth shut for some amount of time, because I had to do that a lot. It's like, just listen and then don't maybe judge it right away. Let it sink in and then come back in faith that maybe it'll be explained further or something like that. And it has been. That, wow, a power greater than myself. And it can be just about anything you can think of. Because on one hand, like it said in this book, the 12 by 12, me, which they say, you that have done not even anything, very nil, not even approached any kind of solution, here's a group of people that have. They have the answer that I want also. Yet I don't know, like, the right question to ask maybe, or how to arrive at that answer of a power greater than myself restoring me to sanity. Because that's what I needed. If you go back and look at the first step, it says we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Our lives had become unmanageable. And then step 2 says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So step 1, we determined powerless and unmanageable. Step 2 affords us some kind of answer or solution to that, a possible, that a power greater than ourselves. And then step 3, we turned our lives and will over to the care of God as we understood him. That's paraphrased. And it, as we understood him. I'm going to be so bold as to say you could choose the doorknob as your power greater than yourself. And here's why. Because after 16 years or so of hearing this at meetings, I started to form a better idea of why that doorknob, I don't know if you can see the one over here, might be more powerful than you are and have an ability to restore your sanity, whereas everything you've tried thus far has not worked. And that's because that doorknob can open a door into another area, say, such as maybe an Alcoholics Anonymous club full of all these people that seem to have solved in quotations, their alcohol problem. It doesn't, I guess, to clear this up a bit further, it doesn't say that they solved alcoholism. They didn't come up with a cure to alcoholism. They just solved the problematic aspect of their drinking up until that point, and then realized that a power greater than themselves could restore themselves to sanity, maybe at least as far as alcohol is concerned. And then again, I said, at least for myself, I'm an alcoholic. However you define it, for me, that means I entirely lose control of myself when I consume alcohol, and the one drink is never enough. 50 aren't too many. I don't care about the consequences. I just care about drinking more booze. This craving set up in me that is never satisfied with alcohol. Thanks for coming by here today. Did I ever get back to this part? I don't know if I even need to, or if I could. When we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis. So I had this crisis. I found out that my life was ruined, almost, and it was from alcohol. I fit the criterion for step one, or powerless over alcohol. I knew that for many, many years. I couldn't seem to quit drinking the stuff, though. This is like this crisis. What was my choice going to be? Could I find a power greater than myself? And then I found out that just the group would have more power than I. Let's just try that. And then here, let me read step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. I like to think of that also. I decided to just listen to the group and do what they do. The group of Alcoholics Anonymous that I chose to follow, that were getting results I determined I liked. I'm going to hang with those people and perhaps ask one of them people to be my sponsor. And the thing about that, it took me 2 years because I wasn't ready to be humble yet. Being as broken as I was, I still wasn't ready to give up what I thought was control in my life. So 2 years of misery, real bad misery, suicidal misery, actually, brought me to humility. Thank goodness. So here, I'll stop there, and we might have more to talk about tomorrow. So thank you for giving up your valuable time on coming by here. So I'll get back with you later. Good luck and keep up the good work. Goodbye.